fired, quote, due to trade union activity. Now, here's the key detail. They say every fired individual was part of a private trade union Discord channel. And according to the register's sources, this channel was used by the staff to, quote, discuss how they could improve their workplace. Now, they also note that, quote, there might have been just enough members for recognition. And they framed the timing, of course, as being suspicious, where these layoffs happened after management became aware of the channel. But to get more on this, we can go to Bloomberg, because Bloomberg reports that staff were also fired in Canada. So that's what started off today's video. But after the initial reports, well, they got a new statement from Rockstar, and that statement says that the staff were fired for leaking confidential information, which could go against some of what was being suggested by the union. So basically, the allegations here are clear. Rockstar say they were protecting their company's secrets. The IWGB say that Rockstar was retaliating against employees for trying to unionize. But here's the thing. The IWGB are not backing down. They say they'll be, quote, mounting a full and robust defense of its members. This includes doing fundraising for legal coverage and a protest outside of Take-Two's London office. And that's because they believe their members were targeted unfairly for exercising their legal rights. So, quote from them, and yeah, union organization is a protected activity. So, in this story we see that the union is clearly feeling quite bullish. Rockstar are saying things back. But before we get to that, there's a reason why the union is bullish. Because this is not their only active campaign. This isn't the first story out of that union. They're basically making waves in the UK industry, where of course Rockstar is clearly one of their ongoing ventures. Now, recently, they helped staff at Disco Elysium developer Zaum unionize to protect themselves from management and layoffs. And then, I suppose bringing in another Rockstar connection, after the Mind's Eye developer Build a Rocket Boy laid people off, the union gave the impacted staff a platform. And essentially, they're alleging that people were laid off in a fairly improper way, and that's why they're now also helping those people with legal action under the grounds of unfair dismissal. But there is a major distinction for today's story, and it's this. Rockstar denies everything, pretty much. They say that there are no union-related reasons for these dismissals. A Take-Two representative told Bloomberg that it was down to gross misconduct, and for no other reason, adding that they, quote, fully support Rockstar's ambitions and approach. Now, here's the thing, right? Gross misconduct is a fairly huge thing to say. I don't know about other jurisdictions, but it's huge to say in the United Kingdom because it is a legally clear term. It's a legally clear claim for them to make. So because of that, we need to investigate why Rockstar would say this, because if they were just lying, it would look pretty bad in court. Okay, let's try to take Rockstar at their word for this section. That basically 30 plus staff all behaved in a way that reflects gross misconduct. You might be wondering, okay, it's a serious word, but what does it actually mean? Well, in the UK, it's a legal term. It's the kind that lets you fire staff without pay and without notice, though they are meant to get a chance to first respond to the allegations. Now, the government's own guidance lists what qualifies for this, and it's things like theft, gross negligence, physical violence, or serious insubordination. Now, 30 staff engaging in theft, negligence, or violence is probably a stretch, but serious insubordination? Well, that actually could fit, and the reason why is because it extends to breaking company policies. So maybe that's what Rockstar are arguing here, that maintaining corporate confidentiality almost certainly comes under their policies. Perhaps discussing your workplace or the production of the game you're working on an external public platform could be argued to fall into that category. But there is a tightrope to walk here for Rockstar. The IWGB were quite explicit to Bloomberg. They said, quote, the only organizers in the chat were labor organizers. And that would make things tricky for Rockstar, because there's a clear reason they're saying this has nothing to do with the union. If they did, it would go very, very badly for them, and here's the reason why. Firing someone for union activity is simply not allowed unless they are taking part in an illegal industrial action. So, if staff in the Discord were acting as employee representatives, that would be a protected activity. Acting as union representatives would be protected. Lobbying to start or to join a union, that's also protected. Under UK employment law, those dismissals would automatically qualify as being unfair. So So obviously Rockstar are denying it has anything to do with the union. And that would mean that if staff were to bring it to what's called an employment tribunal, and Rockstar then didn't have a valid gross misconduct claim, well then Rockstar would be liable. And that is why the IWGB do intend to bring legal action here. Because basically, if Rockstar fired over 30 people without valid cause, or are just overreaching on the idea of what actually counts as confidential information, then they could lose the case, and those staff may get their jobs back, which would certainly make for an awkward day in the office, but it could also mean compensation for lost wages and damages, and who knows, if it was particularly egregious, maybe things could get a bit punitive. Now, for the IWGB, it would also be a very clear victory. It would further their movement within the country, which obviously would, if their allegations are true, be quite counter to what Rockstar would have wanted. Again, if you were to take their allegations as being true. Though there's one thing, a question that we've not gotten to yet, and it's a very simple one. Why now? Why would Rockstar staff push for union protection at this precise moment? To tell you why, I've got to go back to 2022. Then, Bloomberg reported on changes to the culture at Rockstar, where essentially Rockstar was becoming a place where staff didn't necessarily feel they would need a union to protect themselves. Rockstar got in quite a lot of bad PR over the years, and Bloomberg sources talked about pledges to, quote, keep overtime under control. So very much a far cry from the, quote, 100-hour weeks and the death marches of 14-hour days that had previously been involved in delivering their games. As an example, back in 2018, after the crunch in Red Dead Redemption 2, before it was released, Rockstar even went so far as to authorize staff to speak out about their experiences to try and change the narrative. And since then, even managers who were framed as bullying or being abusive have been removed from power. Basically, they tried to change a lot in the company. And sources flagged up that the company had also closed their gender pay gap by over half the 2018 figure, down to 13.8%, and that even with all that change, in terms of the actual output, they framed the writing on the new Grand Theft Auto game as being thoughtfully satirical, punching up at people with power instead of down. Of course, Grand Theft Auto has always been a satire of American culture made by Scottish people. I mean, obviously it's a lot bigger than that now, but that's basically how the whole thing started off. Anyway, in short, it actually seemed like one of the biggest companies in gaming was also trying to reform itself into being a model for healthy development. Now that stuff came from 2022. Obviously, it's ringing a bit different now, given that we're talking about this story. And one thing that could have changed things was the devastating security breach. When that happened, Rockstar leadership began to tighten their grip. And I would say, understandably so. A major security breach like that is seriously awful for the development of a game. Now, Bloomberg reported that staff were told to return to the office 5 days a week as of February 24, and in their framing, this was for security and productivity reasons. But of course, typically, return to office mandates also can function as soft layoff tools, which basically just helps to get rid of staff, and often in the opinion of companies, get rid of staff who are, let's just say, the least invested in the company's success. Now, the delays to Grand Theft Auto's release have likely not helped matters here, because staff will be under constant levels of pressure to get the game ready by the new release date, and obviously to not have to do another delay. So, in light of all this, it does make sense that the staff would have wanted some union protection. Perhaps they'd seen progress during GTA development, maybe they want to lock it in, maybe they saw signs of backsliding and want to prevent it. Of course, for the visa holders, the people with, say, dependent medical coverage, well, they would quite need some things to be locked in. And if they were unionizing, then the pressure of an upcoming launch would give them maximum leverage. By now, you basically understand both sides of this story. As for GTA, well, an employment tribunal in the UK is not going to kill Grand Theft Auto 6 sales. All the bad press about working conditions will not matter when pre-orders open. But that tribunal's impact could go far beyond the sales of one game. Because if these allegations are true, and remember, they are allegations, then holding Rockstar accountable would actually send a message. You know, one to the biggest companies in the world making the biggest games in the world, that they can't treat their employees like this, that they can't fire people who depend on that job for, say, their right to remain in the country, for their medical care, unless they have real, proper reason. And that would mean that if Rockstar's accusation of gross misconduct would hold, well, then they would be proven right, and those staff would have, by, I suppose, the letter of the law, been proven wrong. But more than that, it would require staff seeking to unionize to be a lot more careful about when and where they take action. As an example, in that Discord server, we don't know what was talked about, and I don't really want to speculate in that, but it's the sort of thing that staff would probably need to be more careful about. Obviously, the IWGB losing on those grounds would even discredit their movement. If they aren't, and things are as the IWGB alleges, then Rockstar would have shattered lives over a Discord channel that staff used to discuss how they could improve their workplace. And you would certainly hope that an improved workplace would in the long term be in everyone's best interests. As for this one, we need to wait and see, and ultimately what will decide things, I'd say, is the opinion of a judge to see how they actually read the cases being made to them. Now, you're probably clicked in this video because you're interested in GTA. And if you're interested in GTA, probably like heists, such as Payday, which may mean you kind of know how Payday 3 was underwhelming. Maybe you're interested in Payday 2. And for that game, there is goddamn huge news. You can find out about it in this video next.
Hello, guys and gals, me, Mutahar. It's one of those late nights, and you kind of sit down and you wonder to yourself, what are you going to do when Grand Theft Auto 6 sucks? Now, in the world of GTA, there's really not a lot to talk about, and, I would make more GTA content, but the reality of it is that we're sitting on an actual drought. If there was an island where if we were in a survival situation and you had to pick a game franchise to stick around, there's really not many game franchises that rival GTA when it comes to absolutely giving the fans nothing, okay? In fact, right off the top of my head, I can only think of one other franchise, and that would probably be The Elder Scrolls, okay? Those guys are sitting with an announcement God knows how long ago, and there's literally no mention of The Elder Scrolls 6. At least us GTA fans at least know that a game is coming out with a set release date. Now, May 26, 2026 is a date that I'm pretty excited for. 200 days away, literally from now. Okay, so I am pretty ready to see Grand Theft Auto 6. But the reality of it is that I have hyped many games in my time. And, usually when it comes to hyping video games, it either ends up being really great, or in most cases, and I would say 99% of them, usually a letdown. Now, there's only one game that I've ever actually hyped myself up for that matched the hype, and that was probably Halo 3, okay? I genuinely enjoyed every single aspect of that game when it came out. But even games like Grand Theft Auto 4 that I actually hyped up considerably, all right? I used to go onto that website every day. Usually when that game ended up coming out, I was like blown away. But then in retrospect, I looked at it and thought, damn, really wasn't all that in a bag of chips compared to the game that I was playing beforehand, San Andreas. Now, obviously, GTA 6 is on its way. And, it's been an interesting development cycle, right? Like, it's been an interesting announcement because, years ago, we ended up with Rockstar tweeting out and saying, yeah, by the way, the next installment, we're working on it. And then radio silence. Until eventually, one day I wake up and Jen tells me, it's like, hey, do you know that GTA, 6 got leaked? Bro, I'm telling you right now, before I could even think of taking the morning dumpy, I went on the internet, looked up these leaks, and I was blown away. Now, I can't show you these leaks for obvious reasons, because I don't want to get shot through my window, But the thing about it is that I saw the diner scene where, again, the main characters in the game were robbing a diner and the cops were surrounding them. I saw the actual, like, cop AI massively enhanced over GTA 5. It just got me hyped for the game because at least I knew and saw, even in alpha states, what the game would eventually become. And then, of course, down the road, they randomly just had to release the first trailer because a bunch of crypto bros were releasing it before Rockstar, and it broke the internet. It was a genuinely amazing looking game. And 6 months ago, obviously, we saw trailer 2. And of course, in 6 months, we've heard not a peep from Rockstar, okay? It's to a point where Rockstar fans are, I shit you not, looking through the moon phases. I mean, we had the whole moon phase conspiracy where people were looking at the moon phases of Grand Theft Auto 5 and trying to use divine charting, I shit you not, to figure out GTA 6 information. It's to a point where fans were thinking that literally in the month of, I believe, October and November, based on the watch of the main character Jason in trailer 2, they were ascertaining when trailer 3 was dropping. And of course, trailer 3 didn't drop, okay? All right, simple as that. Now, I have a simple rule about life, is that set your expectations so low so that if something doesn't happen, you will never be disappointed. And I think that's what makes me cope with this entire situation better than the average Grand Theft Auto fan. Now, obviously, I'm not doing nothing while I'm waiting for GTA 6. I am obviously replaying a lot of my favorite games from Rockstar, so that would be like games like Bully, Manhunt, but more specifically, I'm just playing through older Grand Theft Auto games, and I've decided to do something that will help pass the time, is actually do the 100% checklist on them. So basically, for every Grand Theft Auto game, or really most Rockstar open world stuff, there's a 100% checklist. So basically, if you find all the collectibles, you do all the side missions, all of the content, you will achieve a 100% status. Now, obviously, it's kind of a shame when you go to Rockstar's website and you find out very quickly that their featured games are Grand Theft Auto 6, GTA 5, and GTA Online. They're literally both the same game. And of course, Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a game that they completely abandoned the online mode of, and Red Dead Redemption 1, which doesn't even have the online mode anyways. But there used to be a point with Rockstar where, I think the reason for this hype really just came out with a lot of their previous games and the pedigree raised from them. So the reason why I'm actually pretty hyped for GTA 6, but at least cautiously, is for two reasons, okay? One of them primarily being that the last game that I was this hyped for, Cyberpunk 2077, dropped in a state that obviously wasn't that great. Now, you could probably dig up a clip a month before the game's release, Cyberpunk 2077, of me absolutely getting on my knees and glazing the shit out of this game. And of course, by the time it released, we all know the state of it, it did not drop in the best possible quality. In fact, it was to a point that I ended up just becoming one of the largest critics of the game because it had so many issues on launch that it wasn't even funny, okay? Forget the PC version of the game. The console version that the actual developer, CD Projekt